And we are back, y'all. We're back. Woohoo! Another 72-hour fast in the books. That's how we do it. Hey, I'm Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health, your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level, creating that life you've always wanted. And in this year, y'all, new year, new you. We're talking to adults with type 2 diabetes. How do we put your diabetes in remission? How do we reverse your diabetes, get you off of some of your diabetes medications? How do we help you get healthy? That's what we're doing in this space. And if you've been following us along, we've been using fasting as one of those tools, one of those amazing tools, let me add, that is able to reverse and to heal the body, reverse disease and heal the body. So we've been using fasting for the better part of this, the last several months. Actually, before that, we were fasting, but this last several months, we've been doing extended fasting. And tonight, we want to talk about how long should you really fast? Because that's a question that a lot of people ask. So if you're out there, glad that you're here. Go ahead and chime in. Let us know that you're there. Claim your seat, as they say, because we're in for a good show, a good discussion tonight. And as we always do, you will be able to see what my blood sugars are doing over the last 72 hours, a little over 72 hours now. You'll see there what my Dexcom is saying, what my blood sugar is. We'll take a look at my glucose logs and my report so that you can see. And then off camera right here, I guess I can bring it on camera a little while, you'll get to see some of the things that I'm going to be using to break my fast. Okay, you're going to see some of the stuff I'm going to be using to break my fast, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But first, let's do a quick check-in with you. As you know, I always talk about how I'm feeling physically, mentally, and emotionally, because those are the three components of fasting that can either help you be successful or they can actually help you, well, hinder you from being successful. So physically, I am feeling good. I'm not feeling lightheaded, dizzy. I'm not feeling as though I'm weak or tired, other than the fact that I took some Benadryl and some Zyrtec. Hopefully that'll work as we go through the show. So that had me a little drowsy yesterday, but I'm feeling good today. Mentally, I'm feeling clear. In fact, I'm trying to think today. Yeah, for most of the day, I went through the day. I was, like I said, sleepy a little bit as I went through the day, went to pick my son up, took him to basketball practice, and I fell asleep in the car. But other than that, I'm feeling pretty good. And then emotionally feeling excited to be here. I am not succumbing to any of those heat elements. Remember, we talked about the heat model. Those are the things that push us to eat when we are not hungry. So none of that is in play right now. So I'm feeling pretty good. Okay. And then let's hop over and let's take a look at blood sugars. As you saw, my Libre says that I'm 68 right now. Let me go ahead and pull up my Dexcom. Let's see, where is that? There it is. And so my Dexcom should be coming up right there. So I had to start it, so it lost the signal for a minute. So we'll go back to the Libre until that comes up. And then let's just go ahead right now and hop over and let's take a look and see what my monitors are saying. As you know, I have a contour meter, I have a keto mojo meter, and I usually do those because I want you to see what the difference is in those monitors, because sometimes people will have questions about which one is accurate, or your continuous monitor gives you a different number than the others. So let's go ahead and do that right now. Let me grab a strip for the contour. If I can get it out, y'all. There we go. Let's get that one in there. And then, of course, our Keto Mojo. I wish they would all put it in the same spot, right? One is on top, one is on the bottom, but that's okay. Get rid of that. And we'll pull that back in just a minute. Let's go ahead now, and we're going to get a stick. We're going to do a finger stick. And I use, this is a lancet that I use a lot. I don't usually use a lancing device, but follow your doctor's recommendations, y'all. That's one of those do as I say, not as I do, right? All right, so let's see what that one is going to show. All right, so my Keto Mojo says that my blood sugar is actually 51. And the Contour says that my blood sugar is 58. And you see on the screen over here that my Dexcom, my Libre says I'm 68. And let's see if the Dexcoms come up. And it actually says 62. So all of those guys are pretty close to each other. The Keto Mojo is about 10 points. Yeah, about 10-point difference from the others. And let's go ahead and, as I do, I'm going to start the ketones going, but I'm not going to show you what it is because I want you to guess what do you think my ketones will be, because I've been fasting now for a little over 72 hours, right? 72 hours. We'll get that started, but we won't show you what that number is going to be. I know. I shouldn't do that. I'm bad. All right. So we'll come back and we'll look at that in just a minute. And then we'll also take a look at what my graphs have been showing over the course of the time that I've been fasting. But let's hop over and let's talk a little bit about how long should I fast? How long should I fast? You know, fasting is really kind of that voluntary abstinence, if you will, right? So it's not starvation, right? So starvation, where is there's an abstinence of food, but that's not by choice. But fasting is where we're abstaining from food. And a lot of people have actually appropriated the term fasting to mean lots of different things. So for instance, at church, you may say we're fasting from electronics. We're fasting from movies. We're fasting from something. And the intention is that you are giving yourself time so that you are able to focus in a religious sense on spirituality, right? So that's usually what people mean when they're saying they're fasting from all those other things. But in this case, when we talk about fasting, we're talking about the voluntary abstinence from food and drink. In our case, we are allowing fasting to include that you can drink water, you can drink unsweetened tea, and for those of you who drink coffee, we've said, if you remember probably our second or third show, we said, hey, we'll allow you to do that, right? So drink those things. So, but anyway, it's for a period of time. Fasting has been a religious and cultural phenomenon for thousands of years. So this is not anything new, but recently fasting has taken on kind of this aura of importance, a super aura of importance, if you will, for wellness and for improvement in the body. So there are lots of benefits that fasting will provide. And we've talked here on the show about a lot of those benefits. In fact, when I talk about adults with type 2 diabetes, I said that's who I'm talking to. One of the things I do want to point out is that even people who are not diabetic, if you follow the principles and the ideas that we were talking about, you will have improvement as well. So on the screen, you'll see there. So whether you have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, you have coronary artery disease, polycystic ovarian syndrome, people who have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, obesity, and so many more things will improve in the fasting arena, because fasting has a super ability to reverse, correct, regulate, and get the body into the homeostatic space. Homeostasis is a word that means sameness. So the body likes to be in homeostasis. So that's why when your blood pressure goes up, the body tries to bring it down. when you become dehydrated, the body holds on to fluids, so it doesn't make you pee as much, so you can retain fluids so that the fluid level goes back up. That's why when blood sugars go up, the body tries to bring it down, because it doesn't like to be outside of a range. So the body wants to do that. It wants to get back to homeostasis, and fasting has an incredible ability to do a lot of those things. Okay, so general benefits of fasting, y'all. General benefits of fasting. One is weight loss, and you guys have seen kind of my trek into fasting for weight loss. It was a side effect, people. It was a side effect of the fact that I was controlling blood sugars using fasting. And as a side effect of that, you'll see the weight loss. And so those of you who have seen me here in person, those of you who I've shared my graphs with, that is what is happening. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we get further into the show. Enhanced metabolic health. So fasting has the ability to push your body to use its resources more efficiently. So it improves the metabolic health that you have. So there are a lot of things that we do in our body, a lot of things that happen in our environment, a lot of I was going to say new age, but not new age. That's not the phrase I wanted to use. A lot of new foods, engineered foods, a lot of environmental toxins that can poison our immune system, poison our metabolism, and force our metabolism down a road where it was never intended to go. And so fasting has the ability to begin to correct a lot of those, because we give the body a chance to repair itself and to become more efficient. There are studies, y'all, of people where they're saying, hey, fasting has the ability to help prolong lifespan. Now, why is that? Because we are reversing those diseases that push people further and further along the road of mortality and morbidity. So we're correcting high blood pressure. We're correcting cholesterol. We're correcting diabetes. We're correcting coronary artery disease and fatty liver and all those things. And so that helps to prolong the lifespan. And then, of course, for diabetes, right, that's how we started. Diabetes, it has the ability to control the blood sugars and to cause remission, cause reversal, okay? So those are a lot of the benefits of fasting. So a lot of people will ask me, and in fact, I was talking to someone today, and say, hey, how long should I fast? And as you know, I have been doing a 72-hour fast once a week, going back to about January, okay? Actually December-ish. Prior to that, I was doing intermittent fasting. And we'll talk a little bit about what those phrases mean. It's extended fasting versus intermittent fasting. What are some of the benefits? What are some of the durations? What are some of the drawbacks and so forth? So let's go ahead and let's hop over. Let's talk about intermittent fasting. So IF, as it's called, intermittent fasting. So we're answering the question, how long should I fast? So intermittent fasting kind of ranges from 16 hours to sometimes, 24 hours. Right? So intermittent fasting is this period of time during a particular day where you fast, you have a fasting window, that's when you're not eating, and then you have an eating window. And the most common one that people will use is a 16 and 8. So they fast for 16 hours, they eat during an 8-hour period. Okay? And the frequency, this is daily, right? So you're doing it every day or several times a week. And for most people who are doing intermittent fasting, they're really kind of doing it on a daily basis. So every day they fast for 16 hours, they eat for 18 hours, right? That's the most common. But you can do it lots of different ways. You can do 12 and 12, right? You can do 8 and 16, right? So depending on what's going on in your life, depending on your schedule, that's how that is, that's how that's used. And then, of course, there are people who do like a 24-hour, and actually it turns out to be not a full 24 hours. It's 23 hours, right? And then they eat quickly during an hour. That's another way of doing intermittent fasting, okay? There's there's the 5 and 2 diet, right? So normally you do for 5 days, you restrict the calories, and then you eat over 2 days. So lots of different ways of doing kind of intermittent fasting. And the benefits of that, this can help to improve metabolic health. Now, let's back up and let me just make a statement that is going to cover really everything that I'm going to talk about. So even if I don't repeat this, I want you to remember this. People say, well, which one is better? Which fasting method is better? And the answer is, any fasting that you do right now is better than where you are. Okay? So now the fasting police and everybody else is going to get on me, but I want you to get this. If we are improving your metabolic health, any fasting that you do right now is better than where you may be. Right? So if you're someone who snacks all the time, right? There's never a period of time where you're, other than when you're sleeping, right? And so let's assume that's an 8-hour period. You're sleeping for 8 hours, and all the rest of the time you're snacking. You're maybe eating your main meals, but you're grabbing, something here, grabbing something there. If you begin fasting, that's better than where you find yourselves now. Okay, so that's a kind of a overview statement. So the answer to which fasting is better, and we'll answer that here in just a minute, but you kind of get an idea of where I'm going with that, right? So fasting, so intermittent fasting. So benefits of intermittent fasting, it helps to improve the metabolic health. Fasting is an amazing way, the intermittent fasting is an amazing way to give the body a chance to begin utilizing the stored energy that we have. And in this case, when we're talking about stored energy, we're using up a lot of the sugar, the glycogen that's stored in the liver. Right? Particularly if you're doing those shorter intermittent fasting, like 12 and 12, or even 16 and 16. At 16 hours, the body is just now getting ready to switch into, right? It's just getting ready to use up all of the glycogen coming up there 16, 18 to 24 hours, and is just getting ready to switch over into ketosis. So for most of you, if you're tracking your ketones with an intermittent fast, you will find, unless you're doing a ketogenic diet, you will find that you're not in ketosis. Right? That doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. It just means that the benefits of ketosis are not there. You will still get improved blood sugar, because if you're not putting anything in, if you're not eating any carbs, that allows the body to get that blood sugar to start heading in the right direction. Your insulin levels begin to drop because the insulin can't be there if the blood sugars are going down. And as the insulin drops, you're still getting the benefits of improving blood pressure, improving cholesterol, improving your non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, improving your polycystic ovarian syndrome. Right? So all those benefits, you still get them. Now, if you do longer fasts, of course, those benefits are even more pronounced. Okay? So don't let anybody convince you that intermittent fasting is not a good idea. Like I said, anything that you do beyond where you are right now is of benefit, y'all. So once again, improved metabolic health, we get the weight loss, and that improvement in that lifespan thing, right? I'm going to keep saying that lifespan occurs, that increased lifespan occurs because we're correcting the disease process. Okay, so what are some drawbacks of intermittent fasting? Well, it can lead to hunger. It can lead to irritability and temporary drop in energy, because in the intermittent fasting, and I think I've explained this a little bit before. So when I'm intermittent fasting, I'm still putting carbs in at some point. And those carbohydrates that I put in will cause my blood sugars to go up. When the blood sugars go up, my insulin level comes up, and insulin is a storage hormone. So anything now that you eat will begin being stored. You will start to have, your appetite will be awakened. So you'll have those cravings. And because the body is not using ketones for energy, it still has to rely on carbohydrates. And when those carbohydrates, the sugar drops, you will begin to feel you can feel drop in energy. Right? So it's not a must, but you can. So sometimes when people are saying, hey, I feel weak and tired, one of the first questions I ask is, what fasting are you doing? They say, I'm fasting. I feel weak and tired. Well, what fasting are you doing? Well, I'm doing intermittent fasting. Well, one of the things could be that because you're still putting carbs in at some point, that you're starting to get those fluctuations, because every time the insulin comes up, we get cravings, we get storage. And so the weight doesn't come off as fast. Okay. All right. So the next one is time restricted eating. Time restricted eating. And this one is kind of akin to intermittent fasting, right? And it's an eating window from about 4 to 10 hours, and you do it daily. And what you're doing is you're limiting the intake at specific time frame during the day. For instance, 1 p.m. to 9 p.m., right? There's a specific time that you're doing. And a lot of people will do this because they want to get their body synced with kind of the circadian rhythm. You know, our body works on this cycle. And so they want to say, hey, I'm going to try to sync my body to a circadian rhythm. So I'm going to pick a particular time of the day, and that's the time of the day when I'm going to do this. Right? It's a daily thing, and this can improve body composition, right? Reduce inflammation, and it supports that circadian rhythm. So people who are, for instance, if you used to working a particular shift and you want to change over to a normal circadian rhythm, if you've been traveling, right, and you get to your destination and you want to resync, so this is a way to do that as well. It's still a period of time where you are not eating food, right? So there's this length of time, there's this period where you've cut back on the food, but it tends to be not as much as with the intermittent fasting. So it's a shorter period. Drawbacks is it can be difficult to maintain, especially with the social and family commitments. Kind of the same thing that goes with intermittent fasting as well, right? A lot of times, a lot of the things that we try to do, they don't fail because they don't work. They fail because we have, there are some social issues that's going on, and we have not kind of planned around those social things, right? For instance, if your family eats at 4 and you stop eating at 3 o'clock because that's your eating window's ended, guess what? There's that period of time that you would normally spend with the family that you are feeling kind of isolated, ostracized. Now, it could be that you and your family have come to an agreement, and that's great. But most people they don't have a conversation. It just one day they show up and say, hey, I'm not eating. And, you know, the husband, the wife, the kids are like, why are you not eating? And because they're not eating, they don't want to be triggered. They don't sit at the table. So everybody else is sitting at the table and they're off somewhere else, right? So I tell people, you want to make sure that as you're thinking about the fasting that you're going to do, that you make sure that you are considering the social aspect of it. Because remember, one of the things that pushes us to eat, right? Those triggers, those are those habits, right? Time of day, and those emotions, right? That has to do with those social triggers as well. All right. And then alternate day fasting. And this is a full 24-hour period that we fast. And some people will do it every other day, right? So that's a typical one. So you eat on Sunday, you fast on Monday. You eat on Tuesday, you fast on Wednesday. You eat on Thursday, you fast on Friday. You eat on Saturday, and so on, right? So a full 24-hour day fasting. Now, what I've asked you to do, one of our challenges back, when was that? Back in February, was to begin fasting once a week for 24-hour period, right? So that's not alternate day fasting. That's just picking a specific day where we're fasting for 24 hours, right? And so the alternate day fasting, a lot of people will do it 3 to 4 times a week, right? And so that goes with what I just said. If you do it 3 times a week, that's, Sunday, then Monday, Tuesday, then Wednesday, Thursday, then Friday, and so on and so forth, right? So, and during the time when you're eating normally, right? On the non-fasting days, you're eating normally. And I'll come back and make a point about that normally here in just a minute. So the benefits, it promotes significant weight loss, y'all, because basically what you've done is you've cut your calories by almost 50%. Right? If there were 6 days in the week, then it would be 50%. Since there are 7, most of us will eat 4 days and fast for 3 days. And if that's what you're doing, your total calories have cut in 50%, by 50%. And so weight loss comes amazingly. Now, here is the kicker. Here's the kicker. And here's where sometimes in all the fasting, we kind of lose our way. What happens is on the days when we eat, a lot of us try to make up for the stuff we didn't eat the day before. Right? And you can't do that, because what you're essentially doing is you're essentially going back to the same amount of food. Right? So the weight loss that comes is because, one, we are definitely cutting the calories that we're putting in because we're eating every other day. The other thing is that right at 24 hours, our body has now completely used up, for most of us, all of the glycogen. And if your body started using glycogen earlier, say 18 hours, then you are now burning fat. It helps to improve cardiovascular health as well. One of the drawbacks is because there is this every other day back and forth, the cues, the signals, those little, the hunger pangs, right, can be more pronounced than some of the other fasting that we're going to be, the other fasting we'll be talking about here in just a minute. And then if you're not careful, a lot of people can have nutritional deficits because they're not kind of paying attention to what they're eating on those alternate days. Right? So that's the alternate day fasting. And then, of course, what we've been doing here on the channel is a prolonged fast. And prolonged fast. Now, the prolonged fast, there are a lot of things that we've got to say about prolonged fast, because the prolonged fast has to do with what you really are intending. Okay, the very first fast that we've asked you to do, which is a prolonged fast, right, 24 hours, is to get you in the habit of fasting, get you in the habit of paying attention to those things that may pull you in a particular direction, get you used to listening to your body 24 hours once a week. And also the proof to you that you can do it, right? To prove you can do it. During that period of time, right, one of the things that we've talked about is emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is this ability to know and understand where you are from an emotional standpoint, understand those people around you, and be able to use those emotions in a positive direction. Emotional intelligence. So during the process of an extended fast, there are things that we want to learn that will help propel us in the direction of being successful. A lot of people will do a prolonged fast, 24 hours, 36 hours, 48 hours. A lot of people will do that once a week. The most common is probably once a month for a lot of people. A lot of people will do a 36 hours once a week, but they extended the 72 hours. Not typically something that people do more frequently. Sometimes they'll do 48 hours. Yeah. And in this process, in all that we're doing, right, we're fasting from anything that contains any calories, and we're drinking fluids, non-calorie containing fluids, right? So water, unsweetened tea, coffee, black coffee without anything in it. The benefit of an extended fast is, as I said, at 24 hours, the glycogen is gone. The body is fully switched over, usually, to burning fat. And in the process of burning fat, now we have ketones. And so beyond that 24 hours, beyond the 24-hour period, all we're doing is functioning on ketones. And because we're functioning on ketones for greater than 24 hours, there are those 2 days. If you do like a 72-hour fast, there are 2 days in which we're burning fat, y'all. 2 whole days. We're burning fat. We're using ketones. In the process of doing some of those extended fasts, so starting about 18 hours or so, the body begins this process of autophagy. And autophagy is that process where the body begins basically scavenging throughout the system, finding those dead, broken, unused cells. And what it's doing is it's recycling those and it's rebuilding, right? It's basically taking all those dead cells and it's refurbishing them and rebuilding the system. During this process, our immune system begins to become robust. During this process, our cellular degradation, all those broken cells, you'll see your skin will get better, your hair will get better, right? Your nails become less brittle. Why? Because that autophagy is out there and it's cleaning things up. Our metabolic health gets better. It is in the extended fast that some of the disease processes that you're struggling with get better. Some of you in your disease process is far enough along that yes, intermittent fasting will help. Yes, alternate day fasting will help. Yes, time restricted eating will help. But if we want to really push the envelope and get your disease process at bay, then you've got to do an extended fast. I said to someone, and I think I mentioned on the show, said to someone last week, I was talking to them on Saturday. I said, do you want to have blood sugars of 100 by Tuesday? If your blood sugar is up in the 200-300s, do you want to have blood sugars of 100 by Tuesday, right? 3 days later, 4 days later? The answer is yes. Well, guess what? If you start fasting right now, in 3-4 days, if you don't eat anything, your blood sugar is going to be down into the hundreds. And that proves to you that much of what is causing the high blood sugar has to do with food. Now, let me hasten to say there are other things that will cause high blood sugar, right? So if you don't sleep, if you're in pain, if you have inflammation, if you're stressed, all those things can cause cortisol levels to go up, and that cortisol can cause blood sugars to go up, right? So all of those things are true. But having all those things equal, right? If we're dealing with all of those, if you have high blood sugars, you're type 2 diabetic, if you fast for 3 days, in 3 days, you'll find that your blood sugars are in the hundreds, right? And we'll take a look at some of my blood sugars here in a minute as we look at the graph. So drawbacks. So drawbacks, one, if we are not careful, you can become dehydrated because in addition to the appetite being suppressed because we don't have those insulin levels spiking, then the desire to drink also goes away. And so a lot of people, if they're not conscious, they can become dehydrated. People also worry about hypoglycemia. And as I explained to one of our community members last night in our community meetup, is that oftentimes the reason we feel the hypoglycemia is because there's the medication that's on board. And the medication doesn't know that your blood sugars have gone down. So it continues to push the blood sugar lower and lower and lower. And so we feel that as hypoglycemia. So one of the things that we have to do in the process of improving our blood sugars and getting our diabetes better is we got to adjust our medication, right? And we've talked a little bit about that. We talked a little bit about that in one of our shows several shows ago, and how do we go about adjusting our diabetes medication? Okay, and all those shows are out on our YouTube channel. So the next thing is the risk of muscle loss. Now here's a point that I want to make. If you have significant obesity, when you begin losing weight, you're going to lose some muscle. It is a virtue of the weight loss. You're going to lose some muscle. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to lose so much muscle that it puts us in an unhealthy situation. Okay? So we do not want to do that. So extended fasts. All right, so there it is. Intermittent fasting. time restricted feeding or eating, alternate day fasting, and prolonged fasting. All of those provide tremendous benefits in terms of reversing diabetes, reversing our illnesses, reversing our disease. In the olden days, we had morbidity and mortality because we got infected, we got an infection, or we had some trauma. We were in an accident, something fell on us, we were in a car accident. But today, the things that's causing morbidity and morbidity and mortality, that's death and sickness, they're all related to lifestyle. And a lot of them are related to our food. And what a way, people say, well, can I do this diet or that diet or this other diet? Yes, you can do those diets, but an amazing way of jump-starting that process is, guess what? Fasting. Because if you don't put anything in, guess what? That's an amazing diet. Right? All right. So let's hop over and let's take a look. What do you guys think I'm going to use keep the ketones for last. But let's hop over and let's take a look at blood sugars, right? This is one of my graphs. This is my Dexcom. This is my Dexcom. All right. So as you see on the screen, and for those of you on Instagram, you may not see that well, but I'll kind of describe it. But as you see there, my average blood sugar is 109, and this is average blood sugar for the last, let's see, is it 14 days? Yeah, 14 days. And if I go over and I'm going to go ahead and change this parameter and just make it 90 days. Okay, so 90-day average blood sugar of 114. And it says that my glucose management indicator would be 6.0. And as I mentioned to you last Friday, I saw my physician. Actually, I went to a new physician because my old physician retired. And so my A1C was 6.1, right? So not far from what the estimate was. I'm in range 96% of the time. And the range right here, y'all, is between 70 and 180, right? But 96% of the time. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at one of the graphs because I want to track for you what my blood sugars did over the course of the 3 days when I was fasting. So I started fasting Tuesday night at 6 o'clock. So my blood sugar was 106. Now, if you track back through the day, you'll see that I got up to about 156 right there. That was lunch. And I actually don't remember what I had for lunch, but 156. And going back further, I think 157 may have been the highest it's been in the last couple of weeks. Actually, no, you remember, was it last week or so? I don't know if I had nuts or something, almonds, and it got up to 180. But right when I started fasting, we were 106. 24 hours later, 88. That's Wednesday, so Tuesday to Wednesday. At 48 hours, we're 77. And then today at 6 o'clock, well, I didn't quite get to 6 o'clock, but at, that's what? 3, 4, 5, yeah. So yeah, 3 o'clock today, 4 o'clock today, I was 65. So 72 hours without eating, my blood sugar went from a 1, whatever that was, 105, down to 65. So improvement in blood sugar without eating. So you want to get your blood sugars better? You want to do that in 3 days? You want to begin backing off some of the medication? Guess what? Hey, let's fast because it can be done. And that allows us to be able to back off of medication. Now, I was going through with a patient this week and I was explaining to them because they were doing a 48-hour fast. They were doing a 48-hour fast. And during the day of fasting, they didn't use any medication, no insulin, right? It's gone because during that day, blood sugars are lower. So imagine if I was taking medication on the days when I was fasting, right? So that would drop my blood sugar even more. And so I mentioned to them, I said, hey, wait a minute. What we can probably do is the day before you fast, the last dose of medication for that night. So if you take medication at lunch, don't take any the night before you start fasting. And then the 2 days of fasting, you don't take any. And because your body is more metabolically active, if you do a good job of ending the fast, then probably half of the day following the fast, you don't have to take medication. So we're now talking about 3 entire days during your period, your week, where you're not taking any medication. That's almost 50% decrease in the amount of medication you're taking. Isn't that amazing? That's the power of fasting. That's the ability that fasting has to improve and reverse those processes. And here's the kicker. Right? So here we're talking about blood sugar, right? We're talking about blood sugar. But if my blood sugar goes down, and remember, our premise is that we want to decrease insulin, we want to suppress our appetite, and we want to get rid of sugar, right? Those are the 3 things that I've talked to you about, right? And as we go through this process, get rid of or decrease insulin. That is insulin that you're taking from outside or insulin that your body has to make. We want to suppress the appetite so that those triggers don't get to us. And we want to get rid of as much sugar from the system as possible. So if I'm fasting, during the process of fasting, my blood sugars are going down. So I'm getting rid of sugar. My body's having to use it up. As my blood sugars drop, my insulin that my body has to make goes down. And if I am on insulin, I don't have to take as much insulin from the outside. So we've decreased the insulin. Because the insulin is down, because the insulin is decreased, I don't have those cravings. And so the cravings are the things that push me to eat when I'm not hungry. The snacking that we do, right? I just feel for whatever. Oh, everybody around me is eating, so I'm going to eat. Oh, it's movie night. Oh, we're going to watch a show. Let me eat some popcorn. Oh, I'm walking by the kitchen and I see the bowl with the fruits in there. Let me just grab one. So notice what happened simply in the process of fasting, right? Amazing there. Awesome. All right. Let's see. I do see. Hey, Steve, what's going on? Steve said, I will have some big news for the group Monday night. Okay. Wow. I'm excited about that. So Steve is one of our community members. Thank you for stopping by. And Steve is actually doing a great job. You guys have seen him here on the show kind of dictate or telling us what's been going on in his process. So Steve, I'm excited to hear what that's going to be. Right? I almost don't want to wait until Monday, but that's okay. I'll wait. Let's see what else we have. And to all of those of you who are out there on Instagram, thank you for stopping by and hanging out with us. So let's go back. So what do you think? If you guessed, what do you think my ketones were? What do you think my ketones were? Let me pull up my Keto Mojo. And I'm going to have to, let's do it this way. I have to get it synced. So I'm going to turn the monitor on first. All right, so you won't see it on the monitor. But there you go. So my blood sugar was 51, according to the meter. And then on the screen, you'll see that my ketones were 3.7. With glucose of 51. And if I actually go to the graph and pull that up, let's see, here we are. All right, so the top graph, the beige tan line, that's my blood sugar. And then the other line, the turquoise line, those are the ketones. So let me back up a week. Right, to last week, because last week when I broke the fast, my ketones were up at 4.3, I think, 4.2, with blood sugars down at 64. And then coming into this week, as I started fasting, you'll see there that my blood sugar was higher, right? That's at the beginning of my fasting. Blood sugar was higher. And so as the blood sugars continued to drop, you see that the ketones rise. And then right there around Thursday-ish, Thursday evening maybe, they crossed. So my blood sugars continue to go down, and then my ketones continue to go up. With respect to ketones, right, ketones that are less than 0.5 are considered normal. 0.5 to about 1.5 is considered nutritional ketosis. And then above that is considered therapeutic ketosis, right? So if I go back and look at where I've been this week, let's see. So when we first started, we first started there, this group, right? So when we first started, my ketones were 0.1. So considered normal, right? Blood sugar was still good. And we'll have to kind of talk about some of that, normal blood sugars, ketones, 0.1. What does that mean? But it means I'm not in ketosis. That means I'm still burning sugar as my source of energy. And then as we continued fasting, blood sugar dropped to 75. That was 24 hours later. And my ketones were 0.6. So notice within 24 hours, I've switched into ketosis. Okay. So that's one of the benefits of doing this on a continual basis. And there's this phrase that you'll hear, keto adapted. That means the body's ability to go from burning sugar to burning carbs. All right. So 24 hours later, I was at 0.6 with a blood sugar of 75. 30 hours later, I was blood sugar of 73 with ketones of 0.5. Then last night, as we did our show, blood sugars were down to 67 with ketones of 2.3. And then, of course, right now, blood sugar down to 51 with ketones of 3.7. Yep. All right. So let's talk now a little bit about breaking the fast, right? And so I've done lots of different things, but the one thing that's been kind of consistent is that you guys know I've continued to use broth to break my fast. And so I'm going to do that now. And this is my first meal in little over, actually now it's 72, so almost 73 hours, right? Almost 73 hours. And I love the broth, y'all. So let's go ahead and get a taste. Oh yeah. So I made it today, and so it's a little more salty than my son usually makes. But that's good. This is so good. I might have to head this, y'all. It's in a bowl, it looks like a cup, so I can drink it out of the cup, right? Oh yeah. So that's good. All right. Of course, now my allergies. Okay. So that's it, y'all. The benefits of fasting. And so which fasting method is best? The fasting method that's best is the one that fits into your schedule. Right? That's the first premise. And that's the first rule. Other than that, it depends on what you're doing. If you have significant disease, A1C is up in the 10s, 9s, 8s, coronary artery disease, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, fatty liver, then I recommend that you work on doing extended fasts. Now, you have to start somewhere, right? So I'm not saying, today go out and do a 72-hour fast. But your goal is to work your way up to be able to do an extended fast. 36, 48, 72, actually 96. And I toyed with doing that this week. I didn't do it. I may do that another time. But yeah, so those extended fasts, because you're putting, you need to jumpstart. You need to really hit this hard. So extended fast. If you are, hey, I want to just get healthy. I want to be in control of my eating. I want to be in control of some of these other metabolic processes that are going on. And you're not suffering from diabetes or high cholesterol. You just want to be healthy. The intermittent fasting may be better for you, right? Because it allows you to kind of maintain a semblance of normalcy in your life, right? Not much of an interruption. Okay. But if you're struggling with significant diseases, then yes, 72-hour fast. When is it good to do a week fast? Someone asked me that. Well, a week fast for the people who have significant disease, sometimes the week fast may be for you as well. In fact, there are a lot of centers, a lot of places where when you go in, that's what they do. Right? They do a full 7-day fast to get you ready, whether it's for surgery or there's significant disease going on, and we got to get that like quickly improved. Yeah, extended fasting. But as I said at the beginning, and I'll say this at the end, any fasting that you do right now, if it's longer than you're currently spending eating, then that is beneficial. Right? Because all of those fasting processes will help with weight, enhance your metabolic health. It will help to extend your lifespan because you're reversing, getting rid of those disease processes. And of course, as we are planning to do, we are doing here on the show, we're reversing diabetes. Yep, reversing diabetes. All right, so let's hop over and let's talk a little bit about our platform, y'all. You guys know how we do it. Here on the channel, we educate, we empower, and we encourage. We educate by providing the show. We've got the blog. We've got the podcast. In fact, let me hop over to DwainWoodeMD.com. I'm going to go up to DwainWoodeMD.com. That's going to come up there in just a minute. And you'll get to see, if I can get my mouse over there, you'll get to see a lot of what is going on in our process, right? So we've got our blog that we do, and that comes out every week, once a week. Okay, a lot of things that we've talked about, and these are ancillary. These are things that add to the discussions that we have here on the show. Okay, we've got our podcasts, which is down here somewhere. So we've got our podcast that you can go to. Yeah, there we go. Let me go up here. Podcast. All right, so here's our podcast, right? And for those of you who have family members who don't do video, they don't do YouTube, they're on some other platform, they can go back and listen to an edited version of what we do here on the show. Okay. We also have our next level coaching program. If you'd like to work with me more specifically and more closely, that's our next level coaching program that's available. But a lot of the things that are there that's our education, right? That is our education platform, along with what we do here. We empower. The empowerment has to do with the tools that we are learning, the tools that we're using. Fasting is an amazing tool that we are using for the process of reversing our diabetes, improving our health. Okay? We learned emotional intelligence. If you remember, we learned the 5 whys. Why are we doing this, right? Going 5 levels deep. And let me pull up for you Here we go. This is the pathway that we've been on so far. All right, so these are the 2 tools, several of the tools that we not. These are not all of them, but the 5 whys. Right? Why am I doing this? The fasting. That's one of the tools that we learned that we just talked about tonight. Heat. That process, right? Those triggers that push us in a direction to break our fast, to get off of our diet, to not do the things we need to do, right? Heat, habits, emotions, access, taste, all of those are there. And then emotional intelligence, as we discussed earlier, and then medication management, because you got to manage those medications if we're going to be successful, okay? The heat model, right? Make sure that you're understanding what it is that's pushing you to not do the things that you know you need to do in terms of your diet, right? Is it a habit, right? It's 12 o'clock, everybody's eating, I got to eat. We're watching a movie, so I'm going to eat something. Is it an emotion? Happy, sad, depressed, anxious, lonely, bored? Is it access? Is it just there and you just eat it just because it's there? And then is it a taste? Is it something that just has the right combination of fats, of sugars, of salt, so that when you eat it, you can't just eat one? And then our call to action, y'all. You're out there. Join the challenges. Join the process. Don't let just be something that you listen to and you put it on the shelf, right? Each month we have a challenge. Our challenge for this month is to create a meal that falls into these parameters, right? Whole foods. It should be whole foods. Not a lot of processed foods in there. No added sugar. Some starchy and some non-starchy vegetables. Healthy fats and lean protein. It has to be tasty or you won't do it. And then the appropriate portion size, because our portion sizes are so big. Right, so join the challenges. Then show up, y'all, and share your story. Like Steve said, he's got something he's going to tell us on Monday. Show up and share the story with the folks that are here, because when people see your success, they know that they can be successful. It encourages them. And when they hear your struggles and hear where you are having some challenges, then they know that they're not by themselves. We all want to know that we belong. And then invite a friend. There are right now over 1 billion people on the planet that have diabetes or prediabetes. An additional number that have coronary artery disease, high blood pressure, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and polycystic ovarian syndrome, and on and on and on. And you can be a voice of change in your community, in your family. Let them know that there's this process going on, because this is the new year, y'all. New year, new you. That's what we're doing. And just so excited that you have been here. Glad that I was able to share with you. I'm going to, so I got some eggs here. You guys saw, I'm going to take a bite. And some sausage. It tastes so good. Yep. Wow. And I didn't show you guys the salad, but I've got a salad out there that I'm going to eat. And so as we break the fast, I want to make sure that I maintain a little bit of that ketosis going into the breaking, because even though I'm putting calories in, they're not carbs. So I'm getting calories, but my blood sugars won't spike. So the insulin stays away a little while longer. All right. Well, hey, y'all. Thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging out with me. This is Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health, your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level. And in this year, y'all, new year, new you. We'll see you next week on our show, 7 o'clock Central on Monday. And see us in the social space as we put out more content. Have a great night. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.